Have you ever wondered why mediocre developers are closing $10,000 contracts while you, arguably the better coder, are still fighting for $500 gigs on Upwork? Well, it's because you've been lied to. You think the gap between you and that $10,000 retainer is learning a new framework or writing cleaner syntax, but it's not. I want you to look at this graphic. On the left is the vibe coder, trapped in chaos. On the right is a systems architect, commanding wealth. The difference between these two isn't the code, it's certainty. If we haven't met, I'm Lamont Evans, a systems architect and the founder of the School of Freelancer Freedom. I've spent over 20 years in the freelance trenches, and now I help other freelancers escape the technician's trap to build $10,000 automated business engines using the STAR method. The AI reckoning is here. The data shows a 21% decline in manual coding jobs, while demand for AI automation is up 136%. You're either building the machine or you're being replaced by it. Now, there's a couple of housekeeping rules for this community. Number one, we stop bidding. We don't chase gigs. We architect assets. Number two is we respect the stack. We use a mandated tech stack to move at 10 times the speed. And number three, no side hustles. We build professional infrastructure, not hobbies. So if you're ready to operate as an agency of one, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you're tired of being the best coder in the room with the smallest bank account, this video is your exit strategy. So let's get into it. Now, you might think your ability to write clean code makes you valuable, but the market is screaming the opposite. We are watching a statistical collapse of the manual coder. Demand for traditional software development roles has already dropped by 20%. And if you think the gig economy is your safety net, look at this number. 70% of sellers on platforms like Fiverr earn less than $100 a month. This isn't a temporary slump, it's an extinction event. AI has commoditized syntax. If you're still selling hours of coding, you're fighting for crumbs in a collapsing market. Here is where the trap snaps shut. There's a specific psychological failure that keeps brilliant coders poor, and Michael Gerber called it the fatal assumption. You believe that because you understand the technical work, the coding, the APIs, the syntax, that you automatically understand the business of doing that work. And that's a lie. The technical work and the business of that work are two totally different things. By confusing them, you haven't actually built the business. You've just created a job for yourself. And it's the worst job in the world because you can't quit and you're working for a lunatic, which is yourself. As long as you are stuck in this assumption, you are not an architect. You're just an employee with more tax liability. This is the hardest pill to swallow. You looked at agency code before, right? It's often bloated, messy, and overpriced. Yet they just closed the client that you wanted for $15,000 while you're still fighting for $500. Why? It isn't because their code is better. It's because they possess something that you lack: institutional credibility. High-ticket clients aren't buying React or Python. They're buying insurance. When they look at a solo coder, they see a high-risk delivery vehicle. If you get stuck, get bored, or land a full-time job, their project dies. To them, you're just a gamble. An agency sells a system. They sell documented processes and safety. The client pays a $10,000 premium not for the syntax, but for the certainty that the outcome will be delivered regardless who's doing the typing. In this high ticket market, reliability is infinitely more profitable than brilliance. And this brings us to the single biggest reason that you're exhausted. I call this the capacity of one bottleneck. Look at this hamster wheel. This is your life right now. You think landing a client is the win, right? Well, wrong. Your current model, landing a client, is actually the trigger that stops your business from growth. It's a phenomenon called fulfillment consumption. The moment you sign a contract, you have to stop marketing and you have to stop selling because you have to start coding, and you're the single point of failure. So you code for 3 weeks, you deliver the project, and then you look up and your pipeline is empty. You have to start the engine all over again from zero. This is not a business. It's a series of panic attacks interrupted by typing. As long as you are the fulfillment engine, you will never scale past your own burnout. So how do you escape the hamster wheel? You have to make a fundamental pivot in your identity. You must stop thinking like a vibe coder and start thinking like a systems architect. The technician sells code. The architect sells certainty. The technician sells hours, and the architect sells a predictable engine. Your clients don't care about your Python script or your tech stack. They care about the business result that the script produces. When you shift your offer from "I'll code this for you" to "I'll architect a system that solves this specific expensive problem forever," you stop competing on price. You're no longer just a commodity. You become a strategic asset, and assets get paid for value, not time. This is the mechanic that actually unlocks the $10,000 deal. I call it the prototype framework. Most of you hear a client say, "I have an idea for an app," and you immediately start writing code in your head. You start guessing the features, you start estimating hours, and that's why you're broke. The system architect never guesses. We diagnose. We use this specific framework: problems, requirements, outcomes, target users, to move the client from a vague hallucination to a concrete funded blueprint. And here's the shift that changes your bank account. You do not give this away for free during a coffee chat. You charge for the roadmap. When you sell the diagnosis instead of just the code, you stop being a desperate freelancer hoping for a gig, and you become a trusted consultant. You get paid to define the scope before you write a single line of syntax. Once you have the scope, you usually freeze. You ask yourself, how much should I charge? Or should I count my hours? Or should I guess? Well, stop guessing. Guessing is for amateurs. Architects, we use the B.U.I.L.D framework. To get a client to agree to a $10,000 price tag, you have to show them where the money is going, and we break it down into 5 buckets. The B is for browser. How complex is the front end that they're going to see? The U is for user logic. How smart is the back end database? I is for infrastructure. What does it cost to host and secure this on Vercel or Superbase? The L is for labor and risk. For example, how much new tech do we have to learn in order to pull this off? And the D is for delivery. The 20% buffer for when things go wrong, and things always go wrong. When you present a price this way, you aren't pulling a number out of thin air. You're showing them the mechanics of the machine. You move the conversation from "that sounds expensive" to "oh, I see exactly what I'm paying for." This is how you mathematically justify a 5-figure fee without an argument. Now you have the scope and you have the price. This is usually the moment where you choke because you think you have to become a salesperson. You think you have to convince them, and that is the technician's mindset. The architect uses an engine called the CLOSE method, or the close method. We don't chat with the clients, we establish call clarity using structured discovery scripts. We don't keep our leads in our head, we track them in a lead pipeline. But here's the secret weapon, the offer outline. Instead of spending days writing proposals, we use AI to instantly generate professional statements of work that are so clear that the deal closes itself. This isn't selling, this is prescribing. You aren't asking for money, you're offering a diagnosis and a cure. When you follow this linear path from call to execution, the closing becomes frictionless. Everything that we've talked about today forces you into a binary choice, and I call this the great split. On the left side, you have the vibe coder. If you stay here, you're reactive. You're obsessed with the tools like React, Next.js, or Python rather than the result. You chase $500 gigs on platforms and you live in a constant state of feast or famine because you're selling a commodity, your labor. On the right side, you have the systems architect. Here, you're proactive. You don't sell code, you sell a certainty of outcome. You don't bill for the hours, you bill for the engine that you build. This is how you secure $10,000 retainers and predictable monthly income. The middle class of coding is disappearing, and you're either a low-wage manual component in someone else's machine, or you're an architect designing the machine. Which side are you on? Now, I can hear the objections forming in your mind right now. You're saying, Lamont, I'm just one person. How can I possibly deliver this level of certainty, manage the sales pipeline, build the software without being burnt out? That's the technician talking. The technician thinks the answer is to work more hours or to have more employees, but the architect knows that the answer is leverage. We solve the capacity of one bottleneck by using the FITS protocol or the FITS protocol: fulfillment, integrations, tools, and speed. So we don't just suggest tools, we actually mandate a specific agency of one stack. We use Go High Level to replace the sales team and automate the close pipeline. We use Cursor and Anti-Gravity to write code 10 times faster than the manual developer. And then we use Vercel and Supabase to handle the infrastructure instantly. This stack allows a single system architect to produce the output of a 10-person agency for about $300 a month in software costs. You don't need a payroll, you need a process. So if you're watching this and you know you have the skill, you can build the app or you can write the code, but your bank account doesn't reflect that reality. I want you to understand one thing. The market isn't broken, your machine is broken. You're trying to drive a Ferrari engine inside of a bicycle frame. You have the horsepower, but you don't have the transmission that turns that horsepower into wealth. If you want to stop bidding $500 and start architecting $10,000 engines, you need a new operating system. You need to install the architecture that we talked about today. And I want to help you fix it. Click the link in the description of this video to join me in the School of Freelancer Freedom right now, and let's diagnose exactly where your system is failing and see if you're ready to become an architect.